Welcome back, friends, to another From the Text to the Table, and I am Dr. Andre Lewis. I am so excited about today's episode as we talk from the text to the table with my friend and brother beloved, Pastor Matthew Davis of the Blueprint Church. This preacher, pastor par excellence, who's blowing up in the city of Houston, and we're looking forward to today's topic, When God Says Go. And I think this is a perfect time to introduce once again my friend and brother, Pastor Matthew Davis. Welcome.
Man, thank you so much, Bishop. I'm excited. Anytime I get to be with people that I love and look up to, it's a great time, man.
Yes, indeed, man. We're excited today to just kind of have a little dialogue, if you would, and just kind of unveil, how you got to where you got to, and just kind of hearing God clearly and being obedient to what God said as relates to moving into the pastorate. I think one of the challenges in this day and age is just this idea of obedience.
Yeah.
And what that really means, because we hear often follow God. We hear step out on faith, just trust him. But nobody really talks about what it costs when you actually do it.
Yeah.
And so today I think it's important that we kind of dig into, when did you know, right? When God was speaking directly to you.
Oh, my goodness. About ministry?
Mm-hmm.
So when did I know and when I listened are two completely different timelines. When did I know? I would say that I knew that there was something different that God was doing in my life, probably when I was 19. I had given, I'm not a church person. I didn't grow up church. My mom grew up Catholic. My dad was a coach at, PK. I moved down from East Texas. Maybe they, got married, had me, and got divorced pretty quickly. And so my kind of church history was pretty ambiguous and vague. I kind of was sleep under the pew sometimes in Catholic church. Other times, we were going to church around the city of Houston, but I didn't really get involved and give my life to Jesus. I was about 12 or 13. And even then I was kind of vacillating back and forth between who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. But at 19, I was in a dorm room in my junior college, and I accidentally started a Bible study. And it's a whole thing. I accidentally started a Bible study and did that, and one kid gave their life to Jesus.
Wow.
First time I ever led anybody through the prayer of salvation, where I kind of talked about that. And I remember I came back a week later, and there was 10 people in my room. So I went from 4 to 10, and I'm like, what y'all doing here? It's like, well, we came to have Bible study. And through that time period, I started feeling this tug of like, hey, maybe there's something additional. But my mind was so laser focused on sports and trying to be rich that I was like, nah, I can't do that. And it wasn't until maybe about 6 years later that I really was like, hey, I think I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what kind of, preempted this here.
Okay. So as we segue from the college, backstory of just kind of having that Bible study, impromptu, if you would.
Yeah.
And it turns into something, unique. Take me back to this idea or this moment when you knew God was telling you to plant a church.
Oh, asking all the hard-hitting questions, huh? So I would say this. I think that my journey and me even saying yes to planting a church is wrapped up in one specific moment in July of 2018. I was close to $30,000 in debt. I got cut from the last team, $30,000 in debt, didn't have a job at that point in time. I was just broken. And I was like, okay, God, I'm trying to do what you asked me to do. And I was walking around my dad's neighborhood. And I heard the Holy Spirit say, you'll fail at everything you do until you do what I told you to do. And in that moment, I just broke down crying. And I had this tug, and I was like, well, God, I'll pastor, but I don't even know what that looks like. I don't know anybody who's done it well, who's going to teach me, who's going to do X, Y, and Z. And from there, God placed this vision in my heart, very much so like we see in the book of Genesis with Joseph, that I saw something but didn't know how to interpret it. It was just this idea like, I see I'm going to be doing something, and I've been leading people and kind of doing ministry, but I don't really know what it is. And that began. And so I knew that I was going to eventually pastor a church. I don't know if I'll plant a church, if I'll pastor, if I'll be a youth pastor. I ain't know. And I didn't want to do it. I just knew that I had to do it. And so that went through years of serving and leading and building and learning and studying. And when I was called to plant a church, I felt that tug, and it would have been November of 2021. I was at an Elevation Worship night. They came to Houston, and I have a friend who sings at Elevation Worship. It was at the Toyota Center. I'll never forget it. I'm watching, and they're singing that song, Million Little Miracles. And they had this incredible graphic on the screen that was counting from 0 all the way up to 1 million in like crazy speed. And I'm seeing thousands of people raise their hand, worship Jesus. And I felt this is your future. And it wasn't the size of the arena. It was just like being and creating a place where people can go and a lot of young adults can go and, worship. And so that was it. And I prayed on it. I fasted for 21 days leading up to my birthday. And it was Halloween night, October 31st. And I fasted for 21 days. I broke on my birthday. And I said, okay, this is it. And in January of 2022, we kind of went into, what does this look like? Praying, fasting, seeking out some mentorship. And it was a lonely first 3.5 months. So a very long, a very dark space in my ministerial kind of career. But that was kind of what got us into the beginning of it.
Yeah. So, I think people see the fruit now, right? One of the fastest growing churches in our city, and doing a phenomenal job, but they don't always see the first moment where you're like, okay, this is real now. What I envisioned, what God showed me, the dark season, and then all of a sudden now it's like, boom, we here, right? And things are going. Let me ask you, a unique question. I think that kind of follows up this idea of it's real now, right?
Yeah.
Was it fear, or was it the unknown, if you would, that kind of put you in that dark space?
I think it was a combination of fear of failure, fear of the unknown. And my therapist talks a lot with me about this word resolve. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that I had completely resolved. I was kind of like, God, I'm doing this because you want me to, but I don't really want to do this. Is that, I was in corporate making a significant amount of money, and I was taking care of my wife and all these things. And I was just like, I don't know if I really want to do this. And more importantly, I didn't know how. Mm-hmm. And every preacher, pastor that I looked up to, I either couldn't see myself in, mm-hmm. and I didn't have anybody who I felt like wanted to help me. Mm-hmm. And it was so my insecurities were blaring, and what I did not know, who I did not know, what I didn't know, all these things. And I just like, God, I don't even know what to do. And I feel like you brought me here, and I feel like you leaving me here.
Yeah. I think, a lot of times we live in that tension of what we hear him say and what we feel about ourselves, right? And I think that tension sometimes brings a sense of anxiety and fear, especially when you are looking for what God said in some visible manifestation for somebody else, right? Yeah. And then when you don't see it, you can't see yourself, as you stated, in those individuals or them in you. It's like, I don't know what this looks like.
Yeah.
And then, but yet you still had this burning passion to go forward.
For sure.
Right. I think it's that tension. It's polarized, but it's that tension that I think, we try to live in, and people don't see that, that level of frustration and dark space that we're in, really trying to see. It's like looking through a window that's foggy, but it's something behind it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, when you consider that, I remember being in a place where I knew what God said, but I didn't know how it was going to play out. And that part, I think, is what really messes a lot of people up when it comes to obedience.
Absolutely.
It's really, how is this going to play out? And what am I losing if I go forward?
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, the tension that existed. You're starting, planning, Blueprint Church, you don't necessarily have a schematic design on what everything is going to look like, right?
Yeah.
And you're leaving behind this corporate job. You're taking care of your family, and God says, go.
Oh man. I think that there was this multifaceted tension of, okay, let's talk about me and my home. And so I went from taking care of my wife, not having to work for the first, years of our marriage, to I felt led to leave my job. So I literally crowdfunded from people that I knew, a 6-figure cut from what I was making, just so we could pay we sold our house. Like, we gave everything to Planet Church. And, I had a 2-month-old daughter, and I'm just sitting here like, am I still going to be able to be the man of this house?
Yeah.
To lead them, walking into the schematic portion, to the actual organizational leadership. We planted the church. I'm 30. I'm like, I don't even, I'm wise. I'm young. I'm wise enough to know that I ain't lived a lot of life.
Right.
And then I'm looking and I'm like, man, how am I going to lead this place? And then it's like, yeah, we got to preach, and you got to preach every week. And and managing, and then also managing your own devotional life.
Absolutely.
Because you know this more than I do, but I've learned this in this last 3 years, is that it's very easy to lose your walk while you're trying to help walk other people in their walk.
Absolutely.
And so all these things, that tension of having to manage, of like, God, okay, you said it. I need the God that I preach about to show up for me. I need Jehovah Jireh to come and provide some clarity, some peace, some structure.
Yeah.
I listen, and I remember I prayed that very clearly. I said, I preach about you. I need you too.
Yeah.
And so I need to feel, I don't want to be here giving out something that I don't get access to.
Absolutely.
And I think that was a big tension for me. And we launched the last weekend of January of 2024. And I honestly feel like I couldn't breathe for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And it was just, I felt like I was drinking water from a fire.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
but it was, I think at some point in time I got to breathe, and then it was just kind of, what do we do?
What do you do? I heard you say something. I was going to ask you, did you ever question yourself in the process? But I want to get away from, I want to get away from you to your wife. Did she ever question you in the process? Because it's one thing for you to have it, right? But it's another thing for her, who, we are designed to provide, to give stability. And then you leave the stable thing for something that seems unstable. And now you're saying we got to sell the house.
I'll tell you, I could get emotional talking about it. I am a product of the faithfulness of God, praying parents, and a faithful wife. In the sense of everything that I've told you, I hesitated on. My wife did not. When she was the first person to tell me that I was going to be a preacher and a pastor, I almost hung up in her face. But she called it. It eventually happened. People don't know this. My wife is the one who heard the name Blueprint, not me. We were on the phone, we were dating, and I was like, I don't have a name for a church. And she just kept saying, I think it's Blueprint. And I was like, well, nah, God ain't going to tell you. He going to tell me. And she was just like, okay. And I asked her, where did you get that? And she said, you kept saying the word Blueprint. You didn't even know it. That's where it came about. When we launched the church, before I came to her, before we sold our house, I was praying out on our patio, because I bought our dream house when we first got married. And I felt like God was calling us to sell the house. And I was like, babe, I don't know what to do. She said, if God said it, He'll do it. And that was her wedding gift. She put it on the line. When I came to her later and said, I felt like God was calling me to leave my job, she said, God said it, He'll provide. All of these things, my wife was more certain. Faithful in God. And she always said, well, I knew my husband's a hustler, so he was going to figure it out regardless.
Right.
And the thing is that, but she's always had faith. It was me that was like, I don't know. And so her stability is what kept us strong this whole time.
Yeah. So how do you fast forward 2 years in? The church is growing. You're starting to see what you prayed for, manifest itself in unique ways. Even so much so that it's almost like what he talks about in Malachi 3, that he opens up this window and it's like he's pouring this blessing on you, and you're seeing what most church planners don't see, right? In the first 2 years. And now, how do you stay grounded in that space?
I think that my dad told me something a long time ago when I was a kid, because I grew up a very, very arrogant little kid.
Okay.
I was always good in sports, and it led me to this self-inflated, very egotistical kind of approach and attitude. And my dad told me, he said, humble yourself or God will humiliate you. And I had enough times where my hard head gave me a soft mind that I understood. And when I got into ministry, I just promised God, because I didn't want a big church. Like I didn't even want a church. So a big church or whatever it was, like if we would have saw 100 people, 50 people, I was just happy to be obedient. How do I stay grounded in it? Is that one, I'm consistently bring myself to the cross. I don't ever feel like I deserve what it is that I get to pastor.
Right.
And I think, and I don't know if that's always healthy, but I think that I consistently remind myself, like, I don't know enough. I'm not good enough. Like, I'm here simply by the grace of God. I mean, 1 Corinthians chapter 15:10 says, by his grace I am what I am. And his grace to me is not without effect. No, I worked harder than all of them, yet not I, but the grace of God was with me. That verse is my personal anchor verse in my life. And so I think, I'll be honest with you, Dre, I don't know if I've ever been able to actually really sit and appreciate all that God has done. Because I think that I've been trying to run so hard to make sure that he says, well done, that I think I've, at times, especially early on, I was afraid to really just be like, oh my God, look at what God. People say, like, my dad asked me one time, he's like, son, baby boy, that's what he always called me, baby boy. Yeah. He's like, baby boy, can you believe this?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, Daddy, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's been my method in therapy.
Yeah. In therapy,
sure,
yeah.
Sure.
I think, when you think about growth, God's movement, how God blesses, we hear this word humility thrown out a lot.
Yeah.
And, you've been around long enough now to know that there's humility and there's false humility, right? And so I think one of the things that is glaring in our first conversation when you came and blessed our young adults, did a phenomenal job. We sat down and talked. And I think what stood out to me probably more than anything wasn't just your humility, it was your reverence for people who have done it before you.
Yes, sir.
And I think those things kind of help you stay grounded, because you've seen the pitfalls, but you've also seen the struggles, you've seen the growth, you've seen, the hurts and all of the different challenges that come along with that or associated with it. When you sit and really ponder the Blueprint Church and how God has made you the under shepherd of that flock, emotionally, what did it cost you that nobody saw?
Oh man. It cost me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little bit about this. It cost, I don't want to say everything, because it didn't take everything from me. But it has broken me down in ways that I don't know can really be comprehended by people who don't. As pastors, we're in this little fraternity that we know about. But I mean, you want to talk about moments, and just as me being transparent, of anger, of resentment, of frustration, of like I dealt with anxiety since I've been 18 years old. I've had 3 or 4 panic attacks in the last 2.5 years. Many times where I just called my therapist and I was like, hey, I'm gonna quit. Like, I don't want to do this, and I think that where people mistake is that they think because we look successful that it's not difficult, you know. And I think what it cost me is at times it cost me some peace. It cost me some real you know, joy. And I know we shouldn't let it take that. And but I think that and you mentioned this, like I admire all y'all who went before me. Even if I don't know, like I honor the people who set the platform for me to be able to even do this. And so I watch and I see and I remember as a very, very early on as a minister, I met some pastors and I was like, man, I'm never going to be like that. They're so hearted. They're so cynical. And me being a young, dumb kid, I'm like, yeah, y'all never. And it wasn't until about a year in, I looked at my executive pastor. I said, I see why they're like that.
Yeah. You know, what's so interesting is that I often say to some of the executive staff, I see why my predecessor did or said certain things, because, you know, I think as a people, or if I can call them sheep without, you know, denigrating who they are as people,
For sure.
they only see the picture that they're in.
Absolutely.
And we are always looking at the bigger, broader picture, which they may be celebrating the picture they're in, but we're frustrated about looking at the picture where people are being excluded, right?
Absolutely.
And so that tension exists because we're looking at the broader scope. And then that idea of being cynical and sometimes even frustrated, and everybody's celebrating something, and you're like, no, that's wrong, right? And so you're living in that tension always of people like, well, why are you so upset? Why are you so, you know, and why does he feel this way? Why is he in your mind? You're like, y'all don't get it. It's bigger than you.
Because winning, I've told our staff this, winning is a lousy teacher.
Yeah.
And momentum is a liar.
Yeah.
And the reality is that sometimes people can only see, did we win?
Yeah.
And we're looking at like, we won the wrong way.
Yes, we won the wrong way.
Or you won, we lost.
Yeah.
And I think that picture, so yeah, there's a lot. And I think also, I love my church. It's not the organization, like the people in my church.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is also, I underestimated pastoral hurt of how people can hurt me. Because I've always been a pretty tough guy. And I think that did something. And I underestimated how, when I hurt people, how that would hurt me when I figured out that I hurt people that I cared about because of immaturity or wrong decisions or pride or whatever it is. And so I think that was for about 18 months, that was a very, very fast track learning curve of emotional intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. When so what I hear is that the transition from what you saw to what is actually real as it relates to the church, your family, your personal growth. What I'm hearing now is that it cost you some things, right? And that cost, you know, it made you have to let go of some things, obviously.
For sure.
What was the tension of letting go of some things for you, to be who you are today?
Yeah, I think I was actually having a conversation with somebody I pastor yesterday about this. The hardest thing that I had to grieve was the life that I had envisioned before I got here. And so part of letting things go was not just it was what I saw with it going forward. As a visionary, we can always see things, right? Like you can see your family, you see your church in 20 years. Like I look at my daughter's 2 and I see her leading a small group one day. Like I can see these things. And so for me, whether it's friends that I've left behind or habits or places or whatever it may be, or even aspects of myself, I always envision this long term. And so part of these things is some of them felt like a divorce. Like I tell people all the time in our church, especially our high level leaders, when I'm talking to people whose personality maybe they're not the most personable people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm passing through them. I'm like, man, like, about PM, like, you don't get it. I'm like, no, I get it more than you, because I'm an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you met two of my best friends, is that I've had 4 of the same friends. 3 of them are 25 plus years. I only have one who's 10 years, and that's it. I was never looking for friends. I didn't like talking to people. I was like, man, but one of the things that my pastors told me was that my personality must submit to my calling. My calling can't submit to my personality. And so part of those things is that I had to divorce some things that I thought would be my personality forever and evolve out of that. Yeah. And so, yeah, holding that tension of letting things go, it was well, who am I when I enter into this new territory and I don't have the things that made me safe before?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that tension, I think people never see that a lot of those who are successful or who have God has blessed greatly are introverted people. Yeah. They're the people who really don't want to be in the pulpit. They're the people who really don't want to preach. I was talking to a good friend of mine who used to be the assistant pastor here, Pastor Delbert Mack, who was here in the 80s, 90s, and he's now pastoring Cathedral of Faith, doing a phenomenal job in Beaumont. And he and I often talk. And one of the things that I talk about all the time is that I like joking, having a good time, but the most anxious moment for me is every Sunday morning getting prepared to go up. And people don't realize the tension that you're dealing with when it's time for you to go up, and the space that you're in when it's time for you to go up, right? And then when we're done, the saddest moment for us is when we finish the sermon, because now you are processing what you could have said, should have said, didn't say, and you're kind of moving through those tensions and really trying to navigate next in that space. And then just the fact that somebody came, you know, or was called, and, you know, Christ moved, and, you know, they got saved, and you're like, wow, but that sermon was horrible. And, you know, and so you start working through those tensions, right? Yeah. Which leads into this idea of, you know, I think people celebrate what they see now, the church growing, the movement, your name is being called, how the church is growing, but they don't really realize what you had to walk away from to really get here. We talked a little bit about it, and it reminds me of course of Abram in Genesis 12. You know, God tells him, hey man, leave your country, leave your kinfolk, you know, leave your daddy's house, and go somewhere else, right? And it's crazy when you start talking about this idea of obedience and obeying God. Do you feel like God works like that? You know, giving you, because he gave him a charge without giving him clarity.
Absolutely.
Right. Do you, in this new space that you're in now, do you feel like God moves that way? And if you feel like God moves that way, 2-part question, how do you navigate going without having clarity?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe that God gives selective clarity.
Okay.
He says, hey, leave your kinfolk, your father's house, leave everything, and go to a place called there. He gave him enough to know he was going somewhere, not every step of the way. I think that God deals with us in that manner because we have to trust the one who said it more than the process that he gave it. Yeah. Not only just in Genesis chapter 12, but I think we go to Exodus, I believe it's chapter 14, when the Israelites are leaving out of Egypt. And the Bible says very clearly, it says that he could have taken them a shorter way to Philistine country, but he didn't, because he knew and he feared that if they faced war too soon, they would turn back and go to Egypt. I think part of God's selective clarity and his sovereignty is that he understands. He said he knows the shorter route, but he also knows his children.
Right.
If they don't need to know everything. They don't need to know who's around that corner. They don't need to know every type of step. They don't need to know they're going to walk up to the Red Sea, because they come to the Red Sea, they're going to wonder how, because they can't comprehend that he's going to take a staff and hold it up and then the water's going to part. They don't know. They're going to be out there wondering where, if they're thirsty, and if there's going to be water, and say, hey, but there is some water, but we can't drink it because it's bitter. They can't even comprehend. And I think it's the same thing with us, is that God gives enough to say, hey, go. And it seems cruel. He's like, God, you going to send me out there and you ain't going to tell me how?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to send me out there and you're not going to tell me what's going to happen. You're not going to tell me why. You're not going to give me every step. He said, no.
Yeah.
Because also, I don't want you to believe in the method more than you believe in the Messiah and God. I don't want you to take pride place your faith in the how, but in the who. And I think I've seen that. I'm in a season of that right now. And I'm like, God, I see something, I hear something, but I don't see what I'm supposed to see.
Yeah.
I only hear, and it's that, okay, I get it. It's always funny to me, and maybe this is just my age too, and not just in ministry, just in general. It's always funny to me when God makes you walk out what you preach all the time. And it's like, you talking about walking by faith and not by sight. And it's like, yeah, God, but I'm trying to see something.
Yeah.
So show me a little something.
Show you a
No,
little
you're gonna just go.
Just go. What does being obedient to the call to go without full clarity exposing you?
Ooh, 100%. It exposes how dependent or independent you are. If you are consistently needing affirmation, it will expose, hey, you're not as faithful as you think that you are. There is this ideal that if you say, like, I use my dad as an example. My dad's the greatest man I know. My dad told me something, I ain't gotta ask him no more. And I think that when you get into this time of like, hey, my dad would say, hey son, go home. I'm gonna have food when you get there. He wouldn't tell me what was there. It was just this idea. And I would go around and walk and be like, yo, you want to, and this is the thing, when we think about this, it's so powerful because that moment has happened hundreds of times coming home from school. And I have a partner driving in the car and they're like, yo, you want to sit something eat? Like, nah, my daddy got something. And like, man, we finna go get something eat. Like, nah, my dad got something at home. And I would have no idea of what it is. No idea if it's ready, if I'm gonna like it. Just the idea that my daddy is gonna take care of me. My daddy knows what I like. He ain't gonna order nothing or get nothing. And that I wouldn't prefer it. In that space, it's the same way of this clarity. And so what does it look like? It will expose that whether or not you're dependent on God or dependent on your own knowledge. I tell people all the time, some of y'all are too smart in order to see a miracle because you depend on logic so much.
Yeah.
You're so cerebral that a miracle is a miracle because it don't make sense.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're just so built on logic. And so it'll expose your dependency, your faithfulness. And I also think it will expose the insecurities in your heart.
Yeah.
I think about that often in Exodus 4 with Moses, is that God spoke what we would see as one of the greatest calls over his life, in the sense of burning bush happens. Hey, listen, I've heard the cry of my people, so I came down, but I'm going to send you to liberate them.
Yeah.
That is an immaculate call of God. Like, man, you chose me out of everybody to come and lead them. And Moses doesn't respond with confidence. He responds with insecurity. Who? Am I? No. Can you send somebody else? I don't speak with. I don't do these things. And so it will expose the insecurities in your heart.
Yeah. Just thinking about the story of Moses, and I think our stories and so many others who've gone before us who are still in the work. I think, what it really exposes is that Moses couldn't depend on his giftedness to get the job done, because he's asking him to do something that he wasn't very good at, which was speaking, right? He stutters. He's a murmurer.
Yeah.
He was really good as a war general, but he wasn't good as a speaker. And so God called him to use something that he wasn't necessarily good at, and it exposed his insecurity, as you stated. And then it also exposed, this idea of us using or pushing our gifts, because a lot of times I think when God calls us, we push our gifts in front of everybody.
Yeah.
This is what I'm gifted at, right? And so we jump to that call when it's something that we're gifted at, we know we can do well. So this is what I'm going to do. But when it's something that we're not necessarily secure in,
for sure,
then it's like, man, do I really trust God? Because he's telling me to go, but I'm not secure in what he's telling me to do because I don't have that gift. I don't see it in myself.
Yeah.
And then God tells Moses, I'll speak for you. Right. And so I think the challenge in being obedient is really learning how to enable God to do what he said he's going to do. And that is, I'll be with you. Right.
Absolutely.
And I think, throughout your story, I'm hearing that God has been with you. I want to ask another question. These are some cute rapid fire questions because I think the audience would want to know this, right?
Uh-oh.
Now that you are in this season, the church is growing, you've been obedient to God. I think something you stated the very first time I met you was like, we've been knowing each other forever. We sat down, we talked. You were very transparent. Being obedient, people don't realize the mental anguish that we suffer when we're obedient to God.
For sure.
You mentioned something in the podcast, but you also mentioned something when I first met you. So you said it again today. You talked about a therapist, right? And I think it's important that people understand the tension of being mentally fit to go forward.
Absolutely.
And having the space to talk to someone through some of those insecurities. Talk to me a little bit about that space.
Yeah, therapy has changed my life. I told you this the first time we met, and I haven't said this in the beginning. I want to say it now. Just to take a small little tangent. Is I really do appreciate you and I honor you. I want to make sure I say that on here for how you embrace me and the wisdom you gave me, the way you challenged me when I first came, and just loved on me. Being one of the young guys in the city, I haven't gotten that much. And so I really appreciate from you. And so I want to make sure that you heard and appreciate where you say that. And it was like when we sat down, it was like we had known each other forever. And so with therapy is changed my life. I would not be the father, the pastor, the husband that I am. I don't think I would still be pastoring if I was not in therapy. And what has that space done? I think for anybody, when obedience to God, but especially in what we do in the ministry, there's so much that we take on and we experience and see and hear consistently. And if you don't have a safe place to process that, and let me make sure I say a safe place to process that. Now, let's take it a step further. A safe and wise place to process that. Because some people go and process things with places not safe that's going to go everywhere.
Right.
Other people process places that it is safe. It's not going to go nowhere, but they're going to tell you something stupid. But to be able to have somebody who can help you and save you from you, and to where I can feel judged if I say, hey, I feel like punching somebody today. I'm really angry. Hey, I feel like X, Y, and Z. And then who can help me? My therapist just helped me process something yesterday. And so, I mean, the Bible says that that Jesus is a great counselor.
Yeah.
He's a great physician. Now, we don't get upset about going seeing doctors.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be upset about going seeing therapists. And I think that people have been graced and called and anointed. And my therapist is not just a Christian counselor. He is a counselor and a therapist who is also a spirit-filled Christian. Yeah. And so it is radically transformed my life.
Yeah. I think that's important because I think in the season, that a lot of churches are in, leaders feel the need to be superheroes. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that you've captured what obedience really is on the mental side, the spiritual side, in the sense that you recognize that you're not the be all catch all.
Yeah.
And you do need a space to be human. You need a space to yell and not feel, like you did something wrong, or a space to be human enough to say, I disagree, I'm angry, I'm upset. And I think, in the tension that exists with being obedient to God is that people always assume that you following God means that there aren't any muddy days, there aren't any days where you're agitated, there aren't any days where it's this, everybody wants you to be perfect in this following season. And I think, I learned, and am learning that it's okay to be human, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay to have human moments. But I think you encapsulate something for me, and that is just the idea of you can't be human in every space. And even in a culture that's pulling us into, you need to be real, you need to be real, you need to be real.
Yeah.
They really don't want real. I don't think they want real in the sense of this is who I am and this is what I'm feeling. I think they want real in the sense of, I want to see you exposed without limitation, but then it turns into a place of critique. So
I want to know that you like me, but don't show me that you too much like me.
yeah, there it is.
I want to know, and the word using is like human is not just human. It's this freedom in a sense of, because I know there's been times, speaking of myself, that I got too comfortable and lost my temper.
Yeah.
In front of somebody, and then it's like, you know what? I can't follow you. You can't be my pastor. And it's like, now I done prayed you do some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And you saw me get angry one time.
Yeah.
And so it's in this ideal of because what it would do, and I know that you've experienced that, is that it will make us shell up.
Absolutely.
Because if I let you see me in the garden one time, and now because this is the thing, people say that they want a real pastor, want a real, and it's just, but the reality is like you said, not to speak lower for sheep, but sheep don't like blood.
No.
So it's okay when you come to me bleeding, but if I show you that I'm bleeding, then it's kind of like, and when you talk about, tell me that you bled, don't tell me that you're bleeding.
Yeah.
I like the idea that you struggled at one point.
Right.
Don't tell me that you're struggling.
Absolutely.
I like that you told me that you questioned God at a point, but don't show me. And then we also have, just like in anything, there's classifications to what part of your realness do I want to hear?
Yeah.
What part of that do I want to hear? And so I think those things are, it is a very, very necessary thing for leaders, for pastors, to have a space like that. And I think therapy is incredible. I think peers are incredible.
Yeah.
To be able to have a few friends that, like, I was on the phone with my brother Hollis when I was coming here earlier today, and I was just like, he's a brother. We launched on the same day. He's launched in Nashville, Tennessee, and they're doing incredible work. I mean, it's amazing. Probably one of the greatest things I've ever seen in churches. And but it's the same thing. He'll call me and just say, "Hey, bro, I got to talk to you."
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. And you're not talking to Pastor Matt.
Yeah.
You're just talking to Matt.
Yeah.
And those things are, I think they're just so necessary.
Yeah. So we've covered the onset, the hearing God say go, the tension that exists, the affirmation of your wife speaking into a season that was cloudy for you. Yeah. We've talked about the tension of God not giving clarity in the space, and yet still you have this burning desire to go forward and be obedient to what God said. And then the tensions that surround that uncertainty with being obedient to God. One being the emotional tension, another being the tension mentally that exists with really going forward and not feeling capable of going forward, but yet God is still giving you this burning passion to go forward. Yeah. And then we even dealt with the tension of, mental health, really having that space to talk to somebody and really share with them and not feel judged in the spaces when you need to be obedient, but you don't feel like going, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have the capacity to go in that moment. You need some space to just really just chill, and you get that space to really talk through who you really are. We talked about the anxiety, and reflecting on that anxiety, and then really, navigating the space of people wanting you to be real. And as this space of you being obedient, but then giving you critique and judgment when you are real. Yeah. And as you stated, they want to know you did struggle with something, but they don't want to know that you're struggling with it now. Absolutely. How do you stay focused when there's so many intangibles and uncertainty in the space you're in?
So focus, I'll be honest with you, focus is not an issue of mine in the sense of I'm an extremist.
Okay.
So if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it. We talk about golfing. I'm the type that if I'm a golf, I'm gonna buy new clubs, love. I'm gonna get
Going all out.
I got the visor.
Yeah.
I got the pants. When I started doing jujitsu and boxing, I bought gloves. I bought a gi. Because I'm all in.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not the healthiest thing.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna hyper fixate on something.
Yeah.
So pastoring, leading, growing our people, growing our church, making sure that I'm an obsessive person. And so focus is not my issue. I'll tell you what I am. So how do I say focus? I just try to be consistent every day. I try to be where my feet are, try to hit the tree in the same spot. That's not my problem. If I could just answer a question you didn't ask, my consistent thing that I'm working on is my patience. Because
good luck.
Good luck. So it is my patience to be I want what I want when I want it, how I want it, the way I want it, where I want it, and it better be exactly how I want it. And so in my hyper focus, I've been giving this to some of our leaders, and I've been trying to remind myself of it, just that Galatians 6:9. Don't get weary in well doing. Keep on. Yeah, keep on. Keep it on. Keep it on. And so I think for me, I'm just trying to it's not just stay focused, but to be okay with keep planting until I see the harvest. And I think that it's kind of like, man, well, we've seen the harvest. I'm trying to see what else God is wanting to do, and how can I continue and what is the harvest going to be in my life, in my family, in our church, not just in our church, but in our life, in my family, and my daughter.
Yeah.
And my wife's pregnant. So, and my future child. And I'm wanting to see those things. So for me, it is just how can I hyperfixate and make sure my soul is healthy to be patient.
Yeah.
And to see what God wants to do.
Yeah.
Long term.
As the old saints say, see what the end's gonna be, right?
Yeah.
Saying yes is one thing, but staying in that yes is something else. Right?
Oh man.
And what keeps you going when obedience gets heavy?
Yeah.
When the obedience gets heavy, I've been in seasons when, I'm taking over a church that's only had one pastor in the life of the church. He's the daddy, the founder.
Come on.
And then taking the church in the space that it was in during that season, and then trying to navigate that and stay in a yes that I believe that, God was pushing me to, but also prepping me for.
Yeah.
The greatest challenge was staying in the yes and being obedient to that yes when the people around you weren't saying yes either. Right. And then trying to stay disciplined when I couldn't necessarily see the fruition of what he was trying to show me
For sure.
at the ground level. Right. So what disciplines do you think are necessary for people to stay in their yes and their obedience to God?
Yeah, I think it's great. I'll give you a practical answer, then I'm gonna be spiritual. Or you your Bible thing. Practically, staying in the yes is, I think that your environment is more important than anybody thinks. The easiest way to get somebody to get out of something is to have people encouraging you out of it.
Yeah.
Not because you're going to have your internal battles, but what goes around, 1 Corinthians chapter 15:33, do not be misled, for bad company corrupts good character. This entire idea and ideology of who you surround yourself with matters. So that counsel, the health, I said this in my last, we were talking about earlier, but the health of your soul is so important. Yeah. The health of your soul. How am I thinking? How am I feeling? What do I do with what it is that I feel? What does your time with God look like? God convicted me in a crazy way. He said, working for me is not the same thing as being with me. And I remember for the first 6 to 9 months of our church, I was reading and studying my Bible every week and every day, but it was for sermon prep.
Yeah.
And it was like, when's the last time you studied? Or when's the last time you just ate? Instead of making food and just picking off of the trays while you pass them out. Yeah. And so practicality, your environment, and then your health of your soul will be the two things. What is my commitment in staying in the yes? this is a practical thing, but it's grounded in a scripture. But I didn't give myself a plan B.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I don't have a way out.
Yeah.
I don't think about it came to my mind when I told my therapist, like, man, I want to quit, But like, in the reality of it, it's like, I told God I was going to do it. And in John chapter 6, I believe it was, right after Jesus was speaking, he had did the miracle to 5,000 and the crowd were following him. Bible said that they followed him all the way, and then began to say, unless you eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, you will not inherit the kingdom. And it says that they could not process this harsh teaching, and they began to leave. And Jesus turns to the disciples and says, are you going to go too?
Yeah.
And Peter says something, where would we go? Man, it brought me to tears when I read that, because Peter was saying, I ain't got nowhere else to go. I gave up everything for you. I left my boat. I left my nets. I left my family. Like, I don't have nothing else to do. I'm finna crawl thinking about it. Because for me, and I said the same, like, I don't got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Like, I gave everything to this.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've lost money. I've sold houses. I've lost friends. Like, I gave up everything for her, with the exception of my wife and my children, which I won't.
Yeah.
But I gave up everything. And I'm like, man, like, I don't got nothing else to do. So for me, I don't have a plan B.
Yeah.
And so that's what keeps me here, because I ain't got nowhere else to go.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that, you brought up a passage that brings up another passage in my head, is that in that same passage, maybe 13 chapters later, there's this tension of the disciples waiting for him, and he's dead.
Yeah.
And he tells Mary to tell my disciples to meet me, right?
Yeah.
And I think what's so interesting is while they're waiting, Peter makes this declaration with the disciples who are waiting for him and says, I'm going back fishing.
Yeah.
And literally he's going back, he's making this declaration to go back to his boat. And I think he was on the heels of disappointment.
Come on.
And the disappointment is that he dies, right? But all along he's telling them in the upper room that I'm gonna rise again.
Yeah.
And nobody saw the resurrection, but they saw the death. And I think the tension that exists for a lot of us is that helping people to appreciate that some things are gonna die.
Yes, sir.
But there's gonna be a resurrection.
Absolutely.
And if you live for the death, you quit. But if you live for the resurrection, you keep going. And I think the tension for all of us is we are living for Friday when he dies, rather than living for Sunday when he rises.
Got an organ.
Yeah, right. So I think that's the tension. I think what keeps me going is knowing that there's going to be a resurrection.
Yes, sir.
And if I live for Friday, I will do what the disciples did and I'll flee.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what keeps me from running is knowing that Sunday's coming. And I think that is what motivates me Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday, Monday through Sunday, is the motivation of knowing that there's a resurrection coming. And in a general sense, there's a larger resurrection coming, right? And so I think when I understand that tension of being able to live through the Friday because I know what's coming, I think that is what pushes me and gives me the extra that I need to stand firm when I'm not feeling my best, when I'm feeling like, man, this is hard to hold on to, because people see the glory, right? And they don't know necessarily the stories that are surrounding the tensions that exist, because I think a lot of times as a leader, we carry tensions in our body and in our heart that nobody else knows.
Yeah.
And then when we carry those tensions, we sometimes try to smile, have joy, be happy. And I think it makes sense why Jesus often went off by himself.
Yes, sir.
And just listening to what you said, he had a therapist. Right. He went off, and I think it's important to have those spaces where you can go and do that. So that brings up another question to me is, what mindset had to change for you to really embrace? You talked about a couple of things, and you talked about that a little bit, but let me ask this question instead of that one. How did you grow into what you said yes to? How did you grow into it?
A lot of studying.
Okay.
And a lot of how did I grow into it? I think that I study everybody. I'm a sociologist by degree.
Okay.
And so, and probably just innately as well. I'm a people watcher.
Okay.
And I'm also a product of some things are caught, other things are taught. And when don't nobody want to teach you, you get really good at watching. And so, there's things I picked up in this interview in our conversation that I admire. And so, I think that I grew into this through, it's going to sound contradicting, through a little bit of patience that I don't have, that God is working on, allowing things to kind of be developed, and then also slowly implementing things that I learned from people. And I'm not afraid to say I missed it. So I make a lot of mistakes, but one thing that I can say, if I did have a good quality, I'm very good at coming back and saying, I'm going to change that now. And so through a lot of it was just trial and error. I think I came in and, the young man or the kid that started the church 3 years ago, I'm so different. I looked at my executive pastor yesterday, or I don't know, yesterday or Sunday, and he was like, bro, PM, can you imagine? Think about think about who we are now. And I just remember patience, trial and error, a lot of failure, and then just getting back up. I think, righteous man fall 7 times, get back up 8. And I think that I had to get okay with failing and falling and getting knocked down and playing ball and, things that I did. I've been pretty mentally tough, but this is a different type of mentally tough. I just had to keep getting back up. I think that's the best way for me. I don't have a super eloquent way other than just some grit. I just had to fight my way to get here.
Yeah. Last question, and I want you to ponder this question, right?
Okay.
What would you say to somebody who knows it's God, but they're hesitating because of what it might cost them?
Told me to ponder. Let me close my eyes. Ponder. Think about this. They know that God said yes, but they're hesitating on what it's going to cost them. I'm a firm believer of this. That God has never asked me to give him something that he has not given something back something better back to me. I would tell them that it's okay to be sad about what you're letting go. Because I don't think Jesus ever was upset about them being upset about him dying. He was more so disappointed that they didn't believe that he was going to come back, like you said. And so for me, if I was talking to somebody, it's always better. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
I think we got scars to show that it hurt.
Yeah.
We got pain. But I always think about when Joseph got to Egypt, he named his sons Ephraim and Manasseh, which is God has caused me to forget. I would tell you this. I'm not in that season yet.
Yeah.
But God has shown up for me in some very, very peculiar ways that have made me say, I will go through that 10 times over. The pain and the insecurity that I felt giving up, selling that house. I remember walking into the title office, looking at my wife, tears in my eyes, signing, and then transferring and sewing all that into the church. I was like, we could do a lot with this. We could do a lot with
this. A lot.
But man, I haven't regretted it one day. And so for somebody who's, afraid of what it's going to cost, I think we get mistaken when we think that it's just not going to cost. It's going to cost. That's the only thing never goes on discount.
Yeah.
It's never on sale. And so I would just say it's something better.
It's something better. You know, in closing, just some remarks. First, again, let me just thank you for coming. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, man, I think this was good. I think people needed to hear when God says go and how to be obedient, and hearing it from someone who's doing it, who's living it. You know, we talked a little bit, you know, towards the close here about Jesus's yes and the scars and some of the scars that you endured, just kind of carrying this yes. And I think it's so important because, you know, he let the disciples see his scars, right? And, you know, to help us appreciate that every yes is going to cost you something. And sometimes that yes will cost you some mental anguish. Sometimes that yes will cause you some physical pain. Sometimes that yes will cause you some emotional distress. But I think you encapsulate the whole day, the whole podcast with just simply saying he never takes something from you without giving you something better. And here we have the Blueprint Church. Yeah. He gave you something better. Yeah. And so praise God, man. Thank you so much, man. Friends, again, this has been another From the Text to the Table. I'm so excited again to have my brother, my friend, beloved, Pastor Matthew Davis, the Blueprint Church. Thank you again, brother, for being here with us today, man.
I'm excited, man.
Yeah, look forward to you guys checking out this episode. Don't miss it. It's just all about, you know, when God says go and being obedient to what God says, learning how to navigate that yes, and appreciating some of the things that it's going to cost you. But from the words of Pastor Davis, he's going to give you something better. Be blessed. Look forward to seeing you real soon.